So I have a question for you today. What characterizes a good life for you? I was reading an article recently about the good life, and it acknowledged the complexities of what it means to have a good life. For many people, a good life means be a good person, get into the right college, get married, be successful in a career, and make a good salary. Who among us wouldn't disagree with those comments? But what stood out to me from this article that I read was that there's also a condition to this idea about what it means to have a good life that we may not always think about. And that is that we must be born into the right environment. Today, we continue our sermon series in the book of Genesis with the life of a character named Jacob, another important character in the story of our faith. He, of course, is the grandson of Abraham, and he is the son of Isaac. And the promise that God made, the covenant God made with Abraham and with Isaac, is continued in the life of Jacob. And we discover a few chapters earlier in chapter 28 that it is indeed the promise of land, it's also the promise of descendants that is extended to him, but it also includes a promise that God will be with Jacob wherever he goes. Now, by way of Jacob, you might remember that Jacob is a fraternal twin. And even though his brother Esau was born before him, we learn in the account of his birth that he came out of the womb grabbing his older brother's heel, almost as if he was trying to pull Esau back in order that he might be the firstborn child. Was he trying to get ahead on day one? Was he trying to participate in the good life that comes with being the firstborn child? As with other biblical names, the meaning of the name is associated with one's identity. And the word Jacob means heel grabber. But it also has another meaning too, and that is trickster. And a few weeks ago, we learned of Jacob's deceit of his father, how he tricked him at the direction of his mother Rebekah to pretend to be his older brother Esau, to seek and receive the special authority and honor of the blessing that comes by being a firstborn son. You see, that would have included having a double portion of the inheritance. So naturally, when Esau discovered what happened, he was furious and wanted to kill Jacob, forcing him out of his homeland. Jacob and Esau are estranged, and in the previous chapters, we learn that Jacob goes on to make much of his life, although he does not leave behind his trickster and swindling ways. He stays for over 20 years before attempting to return home, only to be told along the way that his brother is marching towards him with a large army. Through it all, God comes to Jacob over and over again, offering him guidance. And it is God who sends him back to the homeland, and it is God to whom Jacob prays right before our text today. So in our story, we find Jacob all alone. Fearful and in distress, he chose to separate himself from his family. We also find him grabbing again. But this time he is grabbing and holding on to the one he wrestles with all night long. Despite his flaws, Jacob is a part of God's ongoing story. And this strange and fascinating encounter on the edge of a river changes his life forever. And I think we have things to learn from it as well. Here today, we learn he seizes an opportunity with a well-matched opponent and will not let go in this wrestling match until he receives a blessing. There's not much detail given to us about this wrestling match, but we do know that it lasts throughout the night. We don't know why Jacob refused to let go or what the blessing is that he is seeking. But we know the stranger asks him to let go to end the struggle. Sometimes I think in our own lives, we are invited and also challenged to let go of things in our life, even things that might represent a good life for us. We too might wrestle with God, desiring a specific outcome to prayer and wanting to strike up a bargain with God. We might find ourselves wrestling with the challenges of life, including the heartache of suffering, of illness, of unfulfilled dreams, or of grief, to name a few. I think we also wrestle when we see or experience injustices, and we wonder where God is in the midst of the unfairness in the world. Last week, I was away with our students on a youth mission trip to Clay County, West Virginia, with the Appalachia Service Project. Our youth and our volunteers had to wrestle with inequalities, and we had to let go of creature comforts and the bubble of Bergen County where we live. The team confronted head-on the discrepancies that exist in human experience simply because of where we are born and where we grow up. We could never imagine not having access to 5 or 6 or more grocery stores to buy fresh fruits and vegetables. But for the 8,000 residents living in Clay County, West Virginia, there is not even one grocery store. The one that had been there closed in 2019. Without a full grocery store, the options for fresh fruit and vegetables and even fresh meat are, of course, limited. One of our devotions during the week invited us to consider what things we need to let go of in our lives in order to grow. One of our students shared an answer that stuck with me. Their reflection went like this: we need to let go of preconceived ideas about what it means to live a good life. Here in Bergen County, we're bombarded with expectations and visions of what a good life should be. But the people in West Virginia are just like us. We are all one people, and the situation that somebody is in does not define them or separate them from us. The people that we have met in West Virginia are just like us. We are all children of God and created in the image of Jesus. The beauty of serving in Appalachia is that we get to interact with God's children. We get to hear their stories, and we get to see that even though our life experience is different, they too are pursuing a good life as best they can for their families. And we now are a part of their stories, the fabric of our life, and they are a part of ours. I'd like to invite one of our youth participants, Katie McWilliams, who is a rising senior, to come forward. She is going to share a bit of her story serving with ASP last week. Katie.
When I was offered the opportunity to speak at church, I was unsure about it, just as I was unsure about going on the mission trip in the first place. But I realized the impact that the trip had had on me, and heard one of Penny's talking points I felt compelled to, just as I had felt compelled to attend the mission trip. Penny told me one of her talking points was this idea of letting go. I related deeply to this, as the star word I had received at the beginning of the year during youth group was let go. Seeing these words every day encouraged me to attend the trip in the first place. I was forced to let go of the fear and anxiety keeping me from attending the trip, and let go of the discomfort of being away from home. I wrestled with this discomfort a lot before leading up to the trip, worrying if I would be helpful enough on the work site with my limited construction ability, or if I would get along well with the other youth on the trip. But I knew the second the trip had started that I had made the right choice. Not only was this trip an opportunity to give back, but an opportunity to connect with other members of Westside and learn more about the hardships of many people living in Clay County, West Virginia. As I heard different people speak about the community we were in, many said the same thing: there is just nothing here. Jobs and resources are scarce, there is not a grocery store in the county, It is an hour drive to the nearest Walmart. Many have to make a long drive each day to work or to school, and every single child in the education system qualifies for free lunches. The homeowners of the house that we worked on expressed their desire to leave, but understood that that was not an option for them. They were tied there by family and a lack of financial resources to be able to move away. Being a part of something so much bigger than I am is incredibly rewarding, and I felt so grateful to be able to serve in the beautiful Appalachian Mountains. Seeing the fog pile on top of the tree-covered hills each morning and looking out the window on the drive to the work site, seeing the children who lived in the house run around in the yard and admiring the beautiful valley that the family lived in were all little moments where I felt so content and connected to God. And I wouldn't be able to experience any of this if I wasn't able to let go of my fear and my expectations. Letting go is difficult, but it is required for us to grow. Once I started applying my Star Word into my daily life, I found it easier to push myself out of my comfort zone and open myself up for new experiences more. Thank you.
As Katie has shared, and as we learn from this story of Jacob wrestling with the stranger all night long, growth requires us to let go. The growth Jacob experienced comes from his new identity. He had been labeled a trickster through his name that was given to him at birth. But now he is given a new name, Israel, and the story of God continues through this imperfect man. Today, I invite you to remember a time when you have wrestled with God or when you have had to let go of something dear to you in order to grow. And then consider what this week you might be invited to let go of in order for your journey with God to continue, in order for you too to be changed by the love of God. May it be so.